on making a video right now, but then I turned on TYT, listened to Cenk Uygur, and apparently he's in 9/11 denier now. Let's play the video. Alright, so we're starting off with Cenk talking about Building 7, and then from there he goes across all the greatest hits. He goes to flying out the Osama bin Laden family to Saudi Arabia, then he goes to JFK denial too. This is amazing. I've never seen this on TYT, but you know, Cenk's been saying some crazy stuff lately, so wouldn't put it past him.
The first topic. And for all the times that I had this conversation with Ben and a million other people, I would always say, look guys, I get everything and I'm not a physicist. I don't know how the plane could hit or couldn't hit or could crash or couldn't crash. I got no expertise on that. Just that building that is not anywhere near the other buildings just melting down. I've never thought that made any sense. And what we should expect from our government is logical answers.
Right.
Not like, ow.
All right, in case anyone doesn't know, I'll quickly explain like basic 9/11 knowledge right here. So you had 7 World Trade Center buildings. 1 and 2 got hit within 50 and 100 minutes. Both of them collapsed, not because the steel melted, but because the steel warped and expanded. And then that eventually created enough structural stress to cause the buildings to collapse. Okay, what happened to buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6? Well, they were shorter, right? Buildings 5 and 6 were less than 10 stories tall. Buildings 3 and 4 got immediately crushed by the towers, right? And they were also quite short, less than 20 stories, I believe. Then we get to Building 7. Building 7 is about 50 stories tall, so twice as tall as any building in between buildings 1 and 2 and 7. Half as tall as the Twin Towers. What's more, it was built on an electrical substation, I believe, and that caused the engineers to have to take do some compromises, caused it to have less structural integrity, right? It relied on less columns. Number 2, it's taller, of course, so more prone to the collapse in the method that the Twin Towers collapsed. And number 3, it was not damaged at all by the Twin Towers collapsing. Now, what Cenk doesn't know is that the Twin Towers collapsing on World Trade Center buildings 3, 4, 5, and 6 actually helped the fires be contained or completely go out in the cases of buildings 3 and 4. Buildings 5 and 6 were basically, the fires there went on for 6 hours, almost as long as the Building 7 fires, but they were contained because the building was already demolished and under rubble. So what happened was the tallest building that was not hit by a plane got to burn unimpeded for 7 hours. No outside force there to cut off the fire or smother it. It was untouched, basically. Just debris, landed on it. The offices acted as tinder, and it burned for 7 hours until the same thing happened to the World Trade Center 7 as happened to the Twin Towers. So that's the answer, right? The answer is that it being farther away is actually hurt it. If World Trade Center 7 was right next to the Twin Towers, it probably wouldn't have collapsed because it would have just had to deal with major damage. Would have been demolished by the rubble, but fires couldn't have burnt and melt the steel in a way that could have caused a complete structural collapse. Right, so that's the whole story there.
Whatever, shut up, you're a conspiracy theorist, and you...
Yeah, because you've done no research here, so, I mean,
You should never get any real answers. So the reason I interrupted you is because I'm super curious what Piers Morgan's gonna say, because I've literally never heard a proper explanation for it, even when I believe 9/11 100%.
Well, let's go
the
to
official
Piers Morgan.
story.
Let's see what he had to say.
If you look into the investigation into Tower 7, the findings of the investigation into it were that the North Tower, when it came down, had set off a load of fires in Building 7. And it was a steel structure and shouldn't have gone down, but it did. That these fires burned all afternoon, and I think it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon or something, the tower eventually gave way to the welter of fires raging.
7 hours of a fire burning unimpeded.
It gave way to the welter of fires raging inside it. And it was the only time that had happened to a structure that was built in that way. However, there has been another tower very similar to that in structure, which has since gone down in Tehran. So it's no longer the only one. In other words,
I wonder if that was built on over like a similar in a similar situation where they couldn't use the type of column engineering that we typically see. Like they had to like bridge over essentially the electric substation or something. That's interesting.
there is another example of a tower like that collapsing.
Okay, so you can see Tucker Carlson smiling in response to what Piers Morgan is saying, probably because, okay, well, if you want to make that argument that the fire was so hot that it led to the collapse of Building 7, well, what happened to the building in between, right? And that
it got crushed by the debris. What? Are they that stupid? Got crushed by the debris. There were fires there. The buildings were absolutely so demolished that fires couldn't run through it, right? Buildings need, if you want to have a building collapse in that way, it needs like offices connected in a way to have that kind of whole fire burning to create that kind of collapse. If everything's like has holes in it and and the building's cut in half, then guess what? You're not going to get fire. And if the whole thing's smothered, well, fire's out like in a minute. That's what happened to buildings 3 and 4, I believe. Not that the fires completely went out, but they lasted way shorter than 5 and 6, and of course 7.
nothing happened to that building. And so I want to give Tucker an opportunity to
Yep, nothing happened to it.
respond to that, and then we can discuss.
What?
If you have a gun for self-defense, you need to hear this to avoid making a mistake that could land you in jail
I hate the Second
or
Amendment.
worse.
What is the alternative explanation? I mean, if you're examining another theory other than the one that the investigation concluded was simply that the North Tower came down, fires were set off in Tower 7, and then it eventually collapsed, what is the other theory which we should give more credence to?
I don't know. I don't know that the onus is on me or anyone who seeks the truth about what happened to come up with an alternative.
Yep, just asking questions. Just asking questions. Can't propose a single hypothesis that makes even a tenth of as much sense as the mainstream hypothesis does. Typical.
Theory, the onus is on federal authorities to explain why, for example, they never investigated it. Why, for example, the rubble and the steel.
What? They never investigated it? All right. I mean, there was a whole report in 2008 that was released, but I guess you haven't read that.
From that building was carted off within hours and sent out of the country to Asia. Why, for example,
Some was kept around to be tested. The 2008 report, or other reports too, like tested the residue. There was a false report that there was explosive residue on the steel. That's not true. That was never verified. Simply not true. If there was an explosion, we would have heard it, right? Well, this is just like the greatest hits.
an analysis done not by kooks, but by chemists found traces of explosive material in the dust from that day. Why structural engineers who have kind of no skin in this game came to the conclusion that that just couldn't happen based on all available evidence, and that none of that is addressed at all or even mentioned in the 9/11 report. So, and there are all kinds of anomalies.
Because it had been trumped by true evidence? Like, I don't know who you trust here. You just don't trust authority.
As I know that you're fully aware, and there are possible explanations to explain all of them. For example, the BBC report on it.
By the way, it's Tucker Carlson who got mad that the IC report in 2017 included the Steele dossier in an annex that was irrelevant to any of the findings in the IC. Like, you want to include false information in a report that is meant to convey true information. And even that inclusion was very controversial. And only, I believe, Comey and Brennan wanted it. Everyone else said no. And it was just an annex to give context to claims around the Steele dossier. That's what he wants here. He wants an annex. Just going through all the false claims that he himself thinks are more true than the true claims that are in the actual report.
Saying the building had fallen when it hadn't fallen yet.
He's right about that BBC report, and Pierce later says that the BBC report was based on an erroneous report by Reuters. Okay.
Okay, that doesn't.
It was a miscommunication. I believe the BBC reporter was like standing in front of the World Trade Center 7, and they got like a miscommunication that instead of the tower being about to collapse, it had collapsed. It was clearly a mistake. Like she had the tower in the background, I believe, or he. I have no idea. But again, a nothing statement. Like, do you think Routers was in with Al Qaeda? Like, these people are crazy.
Explain anything.
It
Then how did
doesn't.
Reuters know the building was going to collapse before it got hit?
Exactly. Yeah.
So look, I don't know those details.
We don't know.
Okay.
And like I'm very interested to watch this
No one knows. We're just asking questions, guys.
docu-series and the claims that it makes. I was super young when 9/11 happened. I was in high school, and the thought of, you know, this being a big conspiracy was ridiculous to me. It didn't even cross my mind. I was a child, okay? But revisiting this now, I do
Maybe that's my problem. I guess I'm too young to understand the complexities here.
have a lot of questions.
Yeah, no, it's over. Look, we're at a seminal moment in American politics and media. Before, there was a whole bucket of things you could not question. The minute you question them, what would happen? Wow, well, what does that mean you can't question them? You can say anything you want in a backyard barbecue, right? But if you work in politics or media in any way, shape, or form, if you question them, you would immediately be fired. You would be labeled a kook, a conspiracy theorist, and probably some sort of character assassination on top attached to it.
Right.
Anti-Semite, a racist, a this, a that, whatever it is, but you're dispatched. You're not allowed on air, right? Now, because of digital media, they can't contain it. And now everybody's asking questions and they're like, fire Tim Dillon. Damn it, we can't fire Tim Dillon. Okay, then fire Joe Rogan. God damn it, we can't fire Joe Rogan. So now people are starting to ask and ask and ask. And so what I'm telling you now about this seminal moment is we've crossed the Rubicon. You can ask any goddamn thing you like.
Right.
Okay? And if they try to history that is near
Better World Books is a for-profit, socially conscious business and global online bookseller.
nearly impossible to get convinced.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, look, I'm willing to get convinced on anything, but Building 7 is a mystery that is nearly impossible. Like the idea that the towers would collapse themselves, north and south, after they got hit, that the steel could burn so much that they could collapse is a very controversial idea within engineering.
It's absolutely not. It's just simple common knowledge. The steel doesn't have to completely melt for it to warp and for things to shift within the structural integrity of the tower, and for all that weight, it's a tall building, to come down, right?
Engineering circles, right? But but a building across the street with other buildings in between. No, the steel didn't burn down. No way. That is not the correct answer. So the same.
Well, there was a fire there for 7 hours. You're leaving that part out.
Thing with JFK. So if when I was growing up, if you ever said anything about JFK, you were told to shut up and you'd get fired, etc. Now, I don't know who killed JFK because I don't have the secret files in front of me. I don't know what happened on 9/11, but it's not my job to know. It's my job to ask questions, right? And it's the job of the government to tell us the correct answers. So what I'm telling you now is, on JFK,
And you don't believe them. You don't believe anything.
absolutely positive the government's story is not the correct answer. Lee Harvey Oswald didn't shoot him from 3 states away and hit everything else in between and is the greatest shot of all time, even though he had nothing to do with JFK. There's tons and tons of people who despise JFK and wanted him killed and said on the record they wanted him killed. So I don't know which one of them did it. I do know that it wasn't Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh my God, I'm done. This is so stupid. Is he like a back and to the lefter? His head moved back and then to the left. So it must have come from a different building.
Acting by himself. And if you want to do the old games and say, well, the government said it, so you're a conspiracy theorist, you can do that all day long, guys, but it doesn't matter because you lost. because now you look ridiculous. So now when you turn back to 9/11,
Do you want a private industry to say it to you? Like, what do you want here?
no, I don't know the answer, guys. I don't know who did it and why they did it, or maybe it did happen just like October 7th, where it's not that Israel did it, but there was a weird stand-down order. Why was there a stand-down order? And that's not me saying, that's IDF soldiers saying there was a stand-down order right at that exact time when we never have a stand-down order. So that's not me saying Israel did it. That's me saying that's weird.
That is weird,
Right?
and we need an answer to that.
Yeah, and you need a plausible.
I haven't heard of the stand down order, but they were like redistributing troops to, I think, to a different part of the border because there was activity elsewhere. Maybe it was Lebanon, but it seemed pretty standard.
Answer to that. Not trust me, bro, which is what the government's been doing the entire time. And then one more quick thing on Pierce's answer. So now we're told that conveniently.
But for Israel, I would have more space in my mind for them, for a super like deep state figure, religious Zionist to do something like that. That's 100 times more plausible than the 9/11 stuff. Still very, very, very implausible. I think it's stupid for anyone to even say anything like that, but.
There was a building that melted down in a similar way in Tehran. Wait, does Iran acknowledge that? Or is that some intelligence we got from a trusted ally? And just trust us, bro, that building went down just like World Trade Center 7 did. Yeah, maybe and maybe not.
Should we play a few more clips?
Yeah.
Okay, so the topic then switched to whether anyone may have known that this terror attack was going to happen, but withheld that information or that intel from the American people and the American government anyway. Let's get to that clip.
Is it cock up, or do you?
Bomb from Nebraska? Well, how the hell would he know, right? But if it's somebody from the intelligence community, whoa, wait, that's a different thing, right? If it's a senator, that's a different thing, right? So why aren't the American people allowed to know? I mean, you don't even have to give me the brother's name, whether it was the guy who shorted Barclays or the company that did, or American or whatever. Just like, can we find out what category they were in? Were they a farmer? Were they a banker? What were they, right? But for everything, they always tell you the same thing. Shut up, otherwise we'll ruin you. You will assassinate your character and say you're a conspiracy theorist and you'll never work again.
Yeah.
That reaction makes me think, wait, maybe this is worse than I thought.
Yeah, and guys,
because what a weirdo reaction for the most normal questions about one of the most important events in American history.
It is one of the most important and most tragic events in American history. It was the largest terror attack on US soil. Okay, thousands of people died, and it served.
You can't just release these intelligence reports. The right wing does the same thing with the Epstein files. There's so much more that goes into it. You have to have a reason, typically through some kind of court process. You usually wait until like everyone in the report is dead, right? Everything would be blocked out. That is unprecedented. Like you should not do that. There's no point, because you do not deserve to know that information, because it implicates other people. And really, what you're interested in there is the people, not the assessment. We got the assessment in 2008. You're interested in people that you can defame based on a blotched out intelligence report that would be arbitrarily released. Same thing with the Epstein files.
As the catalyst for changing this country forever, and not for the best, I would argue, okay? Violations of Americans' privacies, mass surveillance, the Patriot Act, obviously, foreign wars, it just goes on.
Global war on terrorism that cost us $8 trillion.
Yes.
Happened to take out other people's enemies, not our enemies. Anyways, but.
There's like 2 brain cells bouncing around in that studio right now. Anna debated Ben Shapiro. Imagine how untalented you have to be to lose to Ben Shapiro in a debate. But she was like, we spent more money on the war on terror than we've ever spent on entitlements. And Ben Shapiro's like, no, that's not true. And she's like, but we spent $8 trillion on the war on terror, and we only spend $2 trillion per year in entitlements. It's like, well, if you add up the years of spending on entitlements, it's not even close. But like, what's your point? I don't like the war on terror too. I don't like a lot of aspects of it. There are certain interventions that the U.S. government has done since the 1990s that I am a fan of. And there are certain ones that I'm absolutely not a fan of and think are the worst interventions that we've ever seen.
One other thing, the bin Ladens. So why did we fly out the bin Ladens? No one's ever answered that.
That's a great question.
So that was a question.
Because Saudi Arabia wanted us to. The bin Laden family is like hundreds of people big. And dozens of the bin Laden kids were studying in the United States, just as bin Laden did himself. They're a wealthy family. They send their kids to America to get educated. Osama bin Laden, after fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan, he went on to form Al Qaeda, of course, in like 1988 or something. And then years later, when Saudi Arabia cooperated with the American troops situated in Saudi Arabia, and they did Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield, he publicly denounced the government. He was like, I despise the Saudi Arabian government. I despise the United States. And he got denaturalized from Saudi Arabia, and his family formally disowned him. Later on, none of his family had anything to do with 9/11. They looked at all of them. Saudi Arabia didn't want these people to stay in, and Saudi Arabia didn't either. Didn't want the bin Ladens in the United States or any citizens of Saudi Arabia because they were worried about racist backlash. They wanted to give them the opportunity to leave because we knew it was Al Qaeda immediately. The bin Laden name has been spoiled. Saudi Arabia's name has been spoiled to an extent. These people should be allowed to leave.
Question from the left. That was Michael Moore asking that question. What a weird reaction. You're telling me Osama bin Laden did it, and your first reaction was to gather up all the bin Ladens that apparently lived inside America and fly them out first class to Saudi Arabia.
Why?
And I'm not allowed to ask why? No.
Yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to ask anything. Like, we should have an amendment to the Constitution. We should get rid of the First Amendment. We should amend the First Amendment to make sure that people don't say this kind of stuff on air. I'm half joking. I'm half not. Yeah, what do you mean? These are innocent, these are college-going kids who were going to be basically accused, but probably by their classmates. They already have kind of a suspicious name. And now a lot of kids whose relatives might have been killed in this attack go to school with a bin Laden kit. Don't you think they should be flown out? They were all innocent. Like,
that's crazy talk. Guys, this isn't about right or left. This is about our government doesn't represent us, and they keep telling us funny stories that don't make any sense. The minute you ask one question, they try to take your head off.
Yeah.
So you got one more?
One more clip. Let's take a look.
Ready to lose the hat and regrow the hair? With Choose by Hims, you can regain your hair.
So clearly, yes, there was foreknowledge. By the way, there was a team, this is according to the FBI, by the way, this is the FBI saying, there was a team of clearly intel-connected foreigners who were arrested after 9/11, as you well know, videotaping the terror attacks. I'm almost verbatim quoting from the FBI assessment of this. And the FBI determined that they apparently had foreknowledge of the attacks. So why can't we know more about that? Exactly. Shut up. That's bigoted. No, this is my country.
So I don't know if he's referring to the 5 Israelis who a witness had seen taking photos, not recording, but taking photos of the World Trade Center as it was being attacked. One of them was holding a lighter up to the World Trade Center prior to the attack. And I don't know if that's what he's referring to, but those 5 individuals were kept in US custody for over 2 months. The FBI absolutely did believe that at least 2 of them had connections to Mossad, right? The Israeli.
Oh, I remember this. I'll let her keep talking.
Intelligence organization. And I read the FBI files on this, and the investigation just like abruptly kind of ended after a little over 2 months. John Ashcroft specifically, the attorney general at the time, called for them to be released and sent back to Israel. And then a few years after that, he served as a consultant who consulted on behalf of Israel.
I mean, it's absurd. So guys, look, on that one, again, that's the one that people get most touchy about because they.
I think we've actually had Mossad spies arrested in the United States. If I'm wrong about that, I'll edit that in. This idea though that we take these people into custody and just like circle jerk them off, like no, like that's the first thing you read in your life, and you're like, it just abruptly ended. Well, why do things abruptly end? Maybe because they didn't have evidence. Like, did that ever cross your mind?
Assume all sorts of things in your head that aren't in your head. Like, oh, that must mean that you hate Israel and you hate Jews and you hate this. No, hold on, guys. We're not talking about any of that. We're saying, why did they go to document that event? And that's not my words, that's their words. One of them was on Israeli TV afterwards when he was shipped back to Israel, and they said, why did you go? And he slipped up. I assume he slipped up. He said, we went to document the event, which makes you ask, how did you know there was going to be an event? So now you're not supposed to ask that question, otherwise.
This is so stupid. All right. I'll end it there. I'm about to fall asleep.